This is the Mercedes AMG S65. Not typical in the AMG world, but highly regarded as the pinnacle of any Mercedes product is the 12-cylinder. A 12-cylinder Mercedes is an interesting thing. It's one of those cars that you never really think about, but it immediately catches your attention when you see one. Oh wow, a V12 Mercedes. That's basically what I said when I saw this thing, and I immediately thought to myself, I wonder what it's like to drive it. Alright, so behind the wheel of the S65. Let's take it for a quick drive. And the immediate response you get from this car is that it's very cocooned in and very isolated from the outside world. It just provides like this capsule. It's almost like you're stepping into a bubble. There's dual pane glass, so it makes it ultra quiet in here. Not very much noise coming out. Tire noise is very muted, and just the overall sounds from the outside don't really make it into this cabin. Now let's go ahead and test the acceleration. Let's put the transmission in sport mode. Let's put the car in sport mode as far as the suspension, and the car is in its lowest ride height. And let's get a little straight. Let's see what this thing has got. Now we're rolling here at about 15 miles an hour, and mash. Oh, wheel spin. Wow, at immediate feel, let's go again here. And it doesn't hold the revs all the way. It shifts it at around like 5,500. So you don't get that full shove feeling, but again, man, this thing is super fast, and the exhaust pops on the downshifts are very surprising for a car this size, but not surprising for those familiar with AMG products. Oh, it's like a freight train. It is absolutely relentless. The power delivery of the V12 is very unique, especially in a big heavy car like this. You don't get like an initial shove of acceleration. And then when the twin turbos are spooled up and really pulling you at full power, what's going on here? People are stopped. When they're really pulling you at full power, it's quite the experience. And freight train is, even though it sounds cliche, that's exactly what it sounds like, because it's relentless. That torque that you feel, it's just like pushing you back into your seat. And the relentlessness part of it, and this is what I found with most V12 cars, is it just pulls and pulls and pulls. It's got so much power, and naturally 600 horsepower and 700 plus torque, it's going to feel that way. But I feel like the V12 part of it just totally just takes it to another level. Oh wow, yeah, I mean, it's not the fastest car. Of course, the S63 is faster than this because of the transmission and the all-wheel drive, but this is plenty fast enough. And I think I said, and this is the third time I'm saying it, freight train, I think, is the best way to describe it. A big, heavy thing that's going very fast and is just going to pull and pull and continue to pull because of all the power that it has. Now, some interesting things about the power delivery. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back in comfort mode and tell you about the rest of it. So that power delivery, when you mash it, it is that relentless gobs and gobs of torque just pulling you through. But the interesting part about it is when you're just cruising around town, yes, you do get the sense that it's an AMG and the burbling exhaust and things like that, but it's very, very relaxed and lofty. It almost reminds me of like a 90s big body Mercedes product with those big engines and the big heavy cars. So this feels very much like an old school Mercedes. The throttle is very, very relaxed. You push on it at initial tip in, it's just like almost like it's lugging and very slow to react, and it's just kind of gracefully going away or driving off. And it's just kind of like this nostalgic feeling that you don't get in newer Mercedes products. And granted, this is a 2017 model, so it's quite old, but old in car terms, of course. But yeah, it's a very interesting feeling when you're driving this car, and I think a lot of that also has to do with the way the V12 is tuned and the expectation from the people that are buying this product. So now let me switch over and talk about the suspension. There's a couple interesting things and some settings that you can mess around with. So there's the ride height, there's normal, and then there's a little lifted, and then ABC, there's comfort, sport, and curve. And curve is very interesting to me because what it does is it apparently keeps the body flat, and I was very interested to try this, and granted it's meant to be tried on a track. I tried to nudge it a little bit prior to recording this video, and I couldn't really tell that much of a difference, but there's a slight inclination that the car is like tipping in, and it feels a little weird when you're driving on the street, and ultimately I feel like it's just a major gimmick. And considering that this is a close to 5,000 pound car with a V12 with a demographic that's probably never going to drive it in that nature, I don't know, maybe it was Mercedes testing something, flexing their muscles, because I haven't really seen this type of AMG technology with the curve feature like in any of the newer Mercedes products, or maybe it's there and they just don't market it like they did with this car. So AMG curve with the suspension, kind of a gimmick. I would never put it in that mode. Then there's sport, which sport is questionable as well, considering that I feel like it maybe that makes a 10 to 15% difference in ride quality. Generally sport, the steering really stiffens up and the suspension tightens down in sports cars and stuff, but it's not the same in this. The sport suspension setting, you can kind of drive in it and forget that you're in sport and think you're in comfort. It's really still very comfortable to drive in, and I don't know, again, questionable in a 5,000 pound car. And then comfort is what I'm expecting to be in when I'm driving a car like this. It's very, very nice. The seats combined with the overall suspension feel and the easiness, for the lack of a better term, of the steering and the overall feel when you're driving. And as I mentioned earlier, the cocooned feeling and the isolated feeling, I almost hear nothing from the outside, and all I hear is the exhaust noise coming from the back of the car, and that's it. It's just very, very isolated. It's something that is very apparent after you drive this thing around for about 2 or 3 minutes. You get that feeling of, wow, it's really quiet in here. So I'm going to tie that into just my, I guess, overall thought of this car. If you're looking for something that is quiet, excellent to drive on a daily basis, very relaxed, very comforting, a nice quality interior, the technology is okay, it's still very functional, and a lot of the things that you would use on a daily basis are still found in the S65, even though it's a prior generation car. This is a great, still very expensive, yes, daily driver car, GT cruising car, and ultimately the added bonus of the V12 and the rarity, and also as a double bonus item, in my opinion, I think these things are going to become quite collectible, because obviously V12 and what I mentioned earlier is they still deliver some of that old school Mercedes feel that you would have gotten if, for example, you drove a 90s Mercedes product, or maybe even an early 2000 big body Mercedes cars. And yeah, this era is kind of going away. So those are my thoughts on the drive. Now let's wrap it up with some final thoughts. All right, so that's the Mercedes AMG S65. Now, a 12-cylinder Mercedes has always been a special car, and this S65 coupe is no different. I think it's a great car and achieves its objectives very nicely. And adding on to the fact that they've basically depreciated to 1/3 of their original asking price makes this S65 a very special and most likely a collectible car down the road, somewhat of a value proposition. So that's all I've got. If you've got any questions, please make sure to leave me a comment down below or send me a message on Instagram @DriveSteady. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.